welcome to another great edition of Mississippi Stories. I'm your host, Marshall Ramsey, editor-at-large at Mississippi Today. And our guest today is somebody I always love talking to. In fact, I would imagine we're going to talk a little bit about creativity because, she and her husband, Tom, are two of the most creative folks I know. And that's one of the joys of living in Mississippi is that you get to rub shoulders with people that you kind of want to be like when you grow up. Well, I don't know if I want to totally be like Beth Ann Fennelly or not, but she's pretty darn cool. And Beth Ann, thank you so much for being with us today. And I joked a second ago that if I read off your full bio, that we would be here for about 10, 15 to an hour, something like that. You and I are about the same age, and you have packed a lot in over the last few years.
Well, same with you, Marshall. And you were saying, we talk about creativity, but I feel like all my creativity is funneled in one area of words, and you do words and pictures and, all this multimedia stuff. I think you don't even need me. You could do the hour on your own creativity and we'd all be interested.
Maybe, I don't know. I just taught a class at a high school, and it was the first class of the day. And I know sometimes when you're teaching the first class of the day, man, it's tough. I'm sitting here doing jumping jacks going, wake up. But thank you. That's a very nice compliment. And anybody who can actually make words work is one of my heroes. And last night I have on my phone, you can't see that, but it's Heating and Cooling 52 Micro-Memoirs is one of your more recent short story books. And of course, it's like me, cartooning brought me to the dance, but now I do other things. Poetry brought you to the dance, but now you do a lot of different types of writing. And I love that book for so many different reasons. But I found myself last night reading some of them aloud to Amy. It was just, they're that good. And there's so many different stories in there. And Otis Redding died about the time I was born. And I've always been interested with that. And you even tell that story too. So congrats on that. I know there's a lot of things, but I think the reason why I just figured we need to talk, you did a post not long ago about a novel you've been working on for a long time, 3 years or so. And it was just the proverbial agony of defeat that the novel got rejected. And these are characters that you've grown close to and that you're going to have to, kind of put away for a little while, which I believe that they'll come back in another form. That's just, I have recycled so much stuff that I've done in my career that I know that that's probably what's going to happen with you. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that too today, because it's like, there's a lot of creative people that are watching this, that the first time they face that kind of rejection, they fold, and you really can't allow that to happen.
Yeah. I have really struggled with the fact that I need to put the novel away. After Heating and Cooling, which was published in 2017, I began this novel and wrote on it for 4 years, worked on it a lot, and processed it through many, many different drafts. And with the help of my excellent agent, gradually came to understand it's not going to be published. It's not going to have a life outside the life in my head, in which these characters are very real. And I spent a lot of time with them. And I felt a lot of really bad and negative things about that. I felt shame and Catholic guilt, just so many people believing in me and me taking time for my family. I have 3 children to go away and write. What was it good for if nothing comes out of it? And, all the other things I could have been doing with that time. I even felt a weird guilt to the characters themselves because no one's going to get to meet them because they're only in my head, just all this like weird swirling of emotions. And it occurred to me, probably other writers out there have suffered through this same thing, but we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And I teach writing here at the University of Mississippi. I teach both undergraduates and graduates, and I think a lot about teaching. I think in some ways I was put on earth maybe to be a teacher. And it occurred to me part of my shame about this was I don't have models of other writers who have put these novels away because we don't hear about them and we don't think about them. But if you get a writer alone in a room, they'll say, oh, I've got 4 junked novels or, whatever, everyone's got them. But we don't see them on the bookshelf. And I thought, would this be easier to handle now if I had ever heard my own professors talk about this really ugly aspect of the writing life? And I thought maybe it'd be good for my own students to hear someone talk about it. So I did do like kind of a surprisingly vulnerable post. I was sweating when I hit post, just talking about spending 4 years on this. And I'm a very practical and hardworking person. And I've always had this belief, I might not be the smartest person, I might not be the fastest person, but I'm the hardest working. Just give me time, I'll get there. But I had the time and I couldn't get there. And I just thought maybe I need to say sometimes you just fail and you just keep trying anyway.
Yeah. And when I read that, and I forgot what I wrote back to you, but I mean, I wanted to give you a virtual hug on that one because I've been there myself. I've never written a novel. I've never spent 4 years on anything in my life. I'm the kid whose airplane models, the glue never dried and the wings were droopy because I have no patience. That's why I, at the most, write short stories. I could never even think of writing something for 4 years, but that said, I understand that feeling of shame because we tie ourselves so deeply to our craft. It is so who we are. In 2010, the Clarion Ledger made me part-time. I had just been a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize. They had almost turned down a job in Tulsa, Oklahoma that would have paid me a lot more money. They made promises and then they turned around and bam, cut my pay in half, cut my benefits. And I took it personally. I blamed myself that it was my lack of talent. That was why it happened. It was a business decision, right? It was a bad business decision. And you're bumping up against, obviously an editor that you trust and has a good eye, and editors are a pain in the butt. We have to have them, they believe me, they save you. But I understand that because I literally sunk into a depression for 2 to 3 years because I literally felt like that I had gotten to this level and that my lack of talent and my lack of ability was why all that happened. Dumbest thing I could have possibly done.
Yeah, because also it's the newspaper industry that's failing.
Well, yeah,
it's not,
right.
You know what I mean? So you shouldn't have taken it personally, but I exactly see why you did. And it's also, we're good Americans. We're taught like achieve. And, we measure achievement by this is the published novel or this is the salary and the job title. And we don't really have a culture of vulnerability where you're saying, okay, I'm in the process and the process is going to involve failure. And if I'm not free to fail, I'll never produce anything good. We just don't have an ethos for failure in our society.
That's such a gift that you're giving to your students because I mean, I've got 2 boys that are up at Ole Miss right now and they're in college. And that's what I told my youngest son is very creative and I hope y'all cross paths soon.
Me too.
Because I told him, I said, this is your time to fail. And I don't mean lose your scholarship fail. I mean, like try things and literally trip and fall because at the very worst, you'll come back and live at home. But you still have a place here. You still have a bedroom here. It's good. You don't have a mortgage and kids. And I mean, I know that was kind of the pressure too, because like you said, you took that time away from your children. It's your job. I mean, that's what we do is take that time away to make a living on that. But the fact that you're teaching your kids that, and I thought that post was brilliant and I knew it was incredibly vulnerable. And I wanted to come on and just say, thank you for putting that because it helped me. And it's, it's been 12 years since that all happened to me. Best thing that ever happened to me, to be honest with you, to happen. I'm just grateful because it lit a fire under my butt. And, whatever it is that you're going to do next will be great. But you're gonna walk around with those characters. And it's funny that you say that about characters. So I do a little free coloring sheet every day for kids with a little puppy and a kitty and an alligator. And man, I didn't do anything with them for like 2 weeks and I missed them. I don't make a dime off of this stuff, but I was like, I realized, oh my gosh, that the creation of these characters was literally part of my therapy. And that had to be the way you felt too, when you're sitting down and writing with these characters. And like I said, I hope you can find a way to repurpose them in the future.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Marshall. Meanwhile, let me say, I'm so glad you didn't go to Tulsa. We need you in Mississippi, even at half pay.
Oh, well, thank you.
But twice the love.
Well, thank you. No, it all worked out. I figured out, I gave a lot of plasma and everything, so it all made, we were able to do that a little bit. When you were young, and I love talking with creative people on what lit the fire underneath them. And I mean, you're very honest in your short story book about some of your dad and faith and how growing up and so forth. But what was it what environment, what lit that fire under you that started you to fall in love with words and to be able to start writing?
I think actually it was a little bit of a late bloomer in that regard, Marshall. I didn't have, an amazing teacher in fifth grade who said, you should be doing this. I was just still like a quirky, creative kid. And I liked all those kind of expressive art forms. I kept a journal. For a while, I thought I wanted to be an actress. I liked
Really?
to, oh yeah. And I just always
you and Vince Vaughn could have been starring together in movies.
I know. Yeah. What Marshall's referring to is that Vince Vaughn is from my hometown, but he has no idea who I am. But we were in Mary Poppins together when I was in fourth grade. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. I was Mary Poppins. I had the lead, not Vince Vaughn. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I used to even listen to songs from bands I liked when I was in sixth and seventh grade and write down the lyrics. It was just trying to get into that magic of words, but without having a really direct access, because I thought poetry was really formal and proper. I didn't understand that it could be just an expression of my emotions and that I could, get better at it. Yeah. And it wasn't really until I was in college that I had my first creative writing class with a teacher and was exposed to contemporary writers. In my high school, the only poem we looked at by, a woman was Emily Dickinson. And it was, I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us. This is a modest poem of hers, even though she was actually wildly ambitious and outrageous. That's not the type of work we looked at. So it took me a while to find what contemporary poetry was and to realize that when I found it, wow, this exists. I want to do this. And so it was poetry only for a long time. I got my graduate degree in poetry, and only later did I start trying other genres. And Tom and I wrote a novel together about the flood of the Mississippi River in 1927. And then I wrote Heating and Cooling, which I call Micro-Memoirs. They're true stories, so it's nonfiction, but some of them are just a sentence or a paragraph long. And that's kind of what I'm still dabbling in right now, actually.
There was a piece you posted up on your Facebook and that you've written recently. It's hard when your job is hard but doesn't appear to be. Oh my God. I want to just frame that title and put it up over my drawing board.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So my husband, Tom Franklin, is a writer, but his dad, who recently passed, was a mechanic. His brother's a mechanic, his nephews are mechanics, his brother-in-law's mechanic. He grew up in the woods of Alabama, was expected to be a mechanic. And instead, he became a writer and a professor. And it's so weird when we go back down to that world because, they'll come home from the shop and they'll have bruised fingernails or bloody, cuticles, and they'll sit exhausted at the table and they'll be, oh God, that carburetor. And, I also might have worked really hard that day, but I can hardly be oh God, that chapter on Dickinson, there's nothing you can contribute. You just sound like an idiot. And so I was thinking this thing when, a lawn care crew arrived and I was reading and I knew if they looked at me, it would look like I was doing nothing. Yeah. But actually my reading was so hard. That I kept having to force myself to keep reading and count the pages. So it goes off into this bizarre fantasy where I envision how great it would be if when I read a lot, my face got red and sweaty, so people could look at me and see how hard I'm working,
I know I literally am, like I said, I'm sweating bullets if I'm sitting around and not doing anything. Cause that's when I'm trying. Creativity is like a well, you got to let it recharge. And I'm sitting here reading, trying to fill and come up with ideas. And it's not like the idea is going to pop out. So I usually go do something else. And then the subconscious mind goes, here you go. Yes. Merry Christmas. Yes. I have had editors and publishers over the years that have looked at me going, we're paying you to do this. It's that little picture you see every week, every day is, that's the end result. And that's what you're paying for, but that's anyway, I saw that and I was just she gets it. She totally gets it. And my dad was a mechanic too. He had a car shop and at one point he just kind of looked at me and he said, well, I guess I better sell my shop. You're not going to take it over, are you? And I was like, no, you really don't want me. You don't want me to. I would starve.
Yeah. You've done some cartoons about the shop, maybe though, Yeah. And, like you were saying, how does the cartoon or the creativity happen? A lot of it comes from daydreaming, which seems like the opposite of work, but without that unstructured mind game time, there is no creativity. And that is actually something, I worry a smidge about regarding younger people and technology. And I know as soon as you say stuff like that, you sound like you're ancient and you're just on death's door, which, I did turn 50 recently. So, maybe.
Congratulations.
However, thank you. But I do feel like, young people don't get to be bored, because as soon as they think they're getting bored, they pick up their phone, and that just that daydreamy time of looking out the window with your space, like it's not bifurcated by technology or the needs of people around you or how you're thinking about portraying yourself. I feel like I think it does perhaps do damage to the creative process.
I think it is too. The reason I was looking down is I listen to an audiobook when I walk in the morning. That's just part of ever since my back surgery, I call it my therapy walk, and I go out and take pictures of deer and stuff like that. And I read a really good book, and I will pull it up here in just a second, because I have no attention span anymore because it's been shot. But that said, it talks about that. Oh yeah. Stolen focus, why you can't pay attention, and how to think, deeply again, by Johann Hari, literally came out this week. And they talk about that. They talk about how our attention's been because of this and so forth. So it's just a fantastic book. And Stolen Focus by Johann Hari would be the shortcut on that. Really good. And I think it's something that with you teaching students, there's a lot of, and it talks about everything from, pesticides and so forth, but mainly in the algorithms, how it's just, they're trying to keep us outraged all the time. And that shortens us a little bit, but there was some statistics in there, and I meant to write it down. I didn't, because I'm just not a good host today, but talking about how people are just not reading books as much, which is an occupational hazard for what you do and what I do and what Tom does and what a lot of good folks here in Mississippi do. It's just that people can't focus to sit down and read a book. And I have to admit that it's even gotten harder for me to read a book. And that's crazy, because I've been you read tweets all day or watch TikToks.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So pretty scary.
It is scary. It's actually deeply terrifying.
Oh, good. Well, now that I've scared you, the good news is I draw pictures. So, hey, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
So, I know, but it is, but I mean, like I said, since you've been in the business and publishing, and since Tom been in the business, the publishing business has really changed. It really has. Like they've kind of had a situation like the newspaper business, in the sense that it used to be, they had promotion departments and they would sell your book. Now you got to have like a lot of followers out there on social media, and you got to get out there and sell your book. Yeah.
That really has changed so much. Now, when you submit a manuscript, they want to know, what's your platform? They want you to be able to say, well, I have 10,000 Twitter followers, and and that's part of the decision they bring into whether they're even going to buy the book. They're not asking this after they bought the book. This is going into whether they want to publish it. And that's horrifying to me, especially because I'm not on Twitter or Instagram. I don't actually do a lot of social media, but that's really changed the publishing industry, and also the consolidation of the publishing industry, where we have like more, and like the big houses are cannibalizing each other and getting bigger. So there's smaller, there's fewer mid-sized publishers. So there's fewer publishers looking for different types of things that are not going to be big blockbusters. So there's a shrinkage of the ambition of the publishing industry as well.
See, that's terrifying to me, to think that, if say I've got 65,000 Twitter followers, that they would ever, even in a million years, look at something that I did ahead of what you do because you don't have any Twitter followers. That just, and I'm not being mean to myself. You're just that good, and it's just like, and I mean, somebody took a chance on Angie Thomas, for instance. She came out of nowhere, and is literally, she got an agent through a tweet, that kind of thing. Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm glad that there still are cases of that, but that is kind of scary. When you're a great teacher, by the way. And I mean, like I said, you've got a couple of teaching awards that you got right off the bat, that had to make you feel good. And I have talked to a couple folks and I'm not going to mention their names because I promise not to say anything, that have had you before. And they say that you are absolutely their favorite teacher of their whole college experience. So I thought I'd give you a little boost there. But it's tough. It's like, I taught an editorial cartooning class up at Ole Miss. I had handful of students, and I just looked at them. I said, well, you'll never get a job working as an editorial cartoonist. But I'm going to teach you how to market your stuff and how to, deadline discipline and some legal stuff and stuff like that, because there's skills that'll still do that. When you're sitting in front of a classroom full of fresh faces and we see this whole new world out there, what do you tell them?
Yeah, it's true that when I'm teaching, for example, an undergrad poetry workshop, what are the chances that any one of them is going to become, I'm going to have to use scare quotes here, like a professional poet, none of them are going to. Yet I know for a fact that, the decline in the number of English majors and humanities majors in general is really horrifying, because, English majors are people who can synthesize ideas,
right,
and speak beautifully and persuasively about topics that matter. And the fact that, that's being devalued these days because it's harder to measure in dollar terms, it is chilling.
So yeah, basically I think with people's attention spans getting shorter and shorter, people that can communicate well will rule the world. Well, that people with a lot of money too. Okay. Which usually aren't the people that write the stuff. Never mind. I'll back off of that a little bit. I like I said, I feel like I learned a lot about you just reading, just for this interview. And I've interviewed you before. And like I said, I'm a fan of your writing. I'm a fan of Tom's writing. The fact that you got to read poetry at the Library of Congress on the invitation of the U.S. Poet Laureate, just to let you know, I don't hate you for that, but I am awfully jealous that you got to do something in the Library of Congress. That is incredibly cool. What was that like? Was it like in the main hall that makes you feel like you're in Hogwarts or something?
I actually have done an event in the main hall, but not that one, because sadly they were renovating the Library of Congress when I got that original invitation. So I read in a nice auditorium, but not that time in the main hall. I was in the main hall for the Mississippi Encyclopedia that was put out from the Center for Southern Culture, where they invited, Mississippians to come, and
which is the largest book ever made, by the way. That is a huge book.
Yeah, it is.
It is a big book. It is wonderful, by the way. Yeah, it's huge. So you got to do that. So you got to have the Hogwarts experience, as I call it.
So there have been some really fun things that I've gotten to do because of my, crazy job. And, if you sell a piece to a magazine, like, even sell is the funny word, because, you might, like, I got $45 for a piece recently, and sometimes I get $0. So, like $45, I was like, woohoo, what am I going to do with all this money? But
just don't put it in a book, right? Don't put it on page 50 in a book.
Funny. But but I do appreciate some of the crazy opportunities that get to come my way. And especially, I really love to travel. And I've gotten invited to read at some interesting places around the world. And that's been a true gift for me. And also the gift of meeting other creative people, like yourself and other people who host these events. It's a richness, do my Christmas card list and see all the friends from far away that I want to keep in my life, that I met through these various events.
I know I looked at your Facebook friends list just briefly, and I'm thinking, want to be that person, want to be that person, want to be that person. You get some really cool people that follow you on Facebook even. But I mean, to circle back, and I felt the same way when I was teaching my class. I can't discourage any single person. If they have got enough of a dream that they want to chase this and they can figure out how to eat, then who am I to say, no, you can't have the joy and the fun that I've had with my career? I mean,
right.
Yeah. I mean, you've got, like I said, I couldn't even ever imagine being a poet laureate of a state, which sounds like a really incredibly cool gig. And you got to do it for 5 years. You got a bonus year thrown in there too. Why did that happen?
Thank you, COVID.
Yeah. Was that a pandemic thing?
Yeah.
So I'm about to say, you suddenly weren't going around reading anywhere. You were doing it all online, I would imagine, at that point.
Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah, but I agree with you about the students, and just, even if they're not going to like make a living at it, just to have something in their life that helps them see clearly and think clearly and express themselves well and give them pleasure. And, we spend 1/3 of our lives working. 1/3. We spend more of our life working than any other activity we do besides sleeping. So if you don't like your job, you're never going to be a happy person. It's just a fact, So I feel like if we can find a job that we like, even if it's not going to be the most lucrative job, or find ways to wrap into a job the things that we love to do. We're going to have a better chance at being a happy human.
Do you keep a journal?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I do too. And it's just shows you that my brain is deteriorating quickly, but it's still fun to get it out on paper and write. I don't know. There's just something about actually handwriting. It's like hand drawing for me, even though I draw on the computer now. It's still fun to actually put pen to paper.
Yes.
Very helpful in that. The page 50 thing, you have a short story, which we will not mention all the details on it, but you got some money, you put it on page 50, and you've got 1.5 zillion books, and you probably still never did find that money, did you?
Never found the money.
And there was a picture of Tom you took that I am never going to borrow a book from you, because you put that picture in there also. And I don't want to get to know Tom that well. I just don't.
Okay. All right.
Do your kids write?
No. They wouldn't stoop so low. I mean, like, zero interest, it seems. Our daughter is in college, and she is doing neuroscience and loves it.
Yeah.
And we have a 16-year-old son, and he likes history. He might want to be a high school history teacher. And we have an 11-year-old son who has a whole bunch of weird, quirky interests. He loves World War I, for example.
Oh, cool.
And can build anything in Legos in 30 seconds. So we'll see.
It's like him and my 14-year-old would get along really well. He likes World War II, so he's on the second one. But I took him down to New Orleans, and he was like sitting there going, he was pointing out things to me, telling me about it. And I'm just like, okay, that's really scary. But which is good, because I'm like a middle-aged old white guy. That's what dads do. We like the World War II stuff, right? We watch the Bismarck documentary over and over and over. And so that's kind of cool. Yeah, it's really weird, because I don't think none of my kids draw.
Oh, really? That surprises me.
Yeah, none of them want to. I mean, but that said, they're all very creative. So it's just a different type of creativity. It's just manifested its way and different. And my wife's an art teacher, so go figure. So yeah, so it's strange like that. So you're coming off the novel. What are you working on now?
I guess maybe the only consolation of like burying that novel in the grave, just saying to myself, like, it's done and I'm never coming back to it, is once I finally gave it up, which weirdly was posting it on Facebook. Somehow that was like putting a gravestone up that allowed me to say, like, this is really done. Yeah. I've announced it. After that, again, the Micro-Memoirs started coming back to me as if they had just been waiting for me to like give them a chance, so I'm just finding joy in writing these small, funny pieces that are like quirky and only written to entertain myself, which oddly sometimes makes them entertaining to other people as well.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, it's funny you mentioned that, because I mean, the stuff that I've done, I did a bunch of drawings over Christmas that had nothing to do with my job, because I had time off. I was drawing Santa Claus in a diner, just stupid stuff like that. Probably some of the best work I've done in years. It was just fun.
Wow.
Because it was like I finally was in flow.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when I paint or when I do that, I'm in flow. But like if I'm doing my daily job, it's just my job. I mean,
right.
7,500 cartoons later, it's not like, it's not hard, mind you, but it's work. It's work. So that was interesting on that. You wrote a short story about your sister, and it was two sisters, one thinner, one better dressed. And that had to be incredibly painful to live through, and then to sit down and write down your power as a poet, and then as being able to just somehow throw words together and make them work. By the end of that, and it wasn't 2 to 3 paragraphs long. It wasn't incredibly long. That was one of the most moving pieces I've ever read. What kind of reaction did you get from that? Did you hear from people that were in that boat also?
Yeah, I did. I did. I guess that's one of the things I really love about putting something out there is hearing from people who relate to it for one reason or another. And, because so much of, if you, for example, are a musician and you're playing, you're seeing people enjoy your music, right? And you get to like feed off that, but when you're a writer, like you're doing it all by yourself, and then it's being received invisibly. Yeah. And so giving readings is really energizing for me. I know a lot of people don't like to give readings because I think it depletes their energy. Maybe It's just a little bit more like for extroverts, but I love reading to audiences, to schools, old age homes, like anything, everybody. I'll read to anybody. That's one of the fun things for me about being, when I was poet laureate, is I got to share a lot of my own work and other people's work and do classes. I love all that. But now just publishing work, you can read reviews, but getting emails from people, I guess, is still something I really, really love, and makes it really meaningful to know you connected.
Yeah, it was when I did the Barbara Bush cartoon that went super viral on that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was neat. The Bush family liked it. Yay. I mean, I was happy. They actually were very nice people. And Jenna Bush Hager is just one of the nicest human beings you'll ever come across. But I started hearing from parents who'd lost children, and they not only did they say the cartoon brought them hope, which was great, but they told me their stories.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
heard from like over 1,000 people on that. And it was
That's amazing.
Yeah, it just reminded me, as us artists, you as an incredible writer, as a teacher, you've got that same gift going out there also, that we wake up every morning with a blank piece of paper or blank canvas, and we can really make a difference with what we're doing. And I mean, I can't say I do it every day, because some days I'm just glad to get something down, and on the virtual page. But
yeah,
I mean, it's kind of a heavy thing to carry around, but it also is just something mindful that, we have that ability to be able to help people see the world in a little bit different or better way.
Yes. Yeah, it's a privilege, really.
And sorry if I just put myself up into your territory on that, because like I said, I just draw cartoons.
No, Marshall, that's amazing that you heard from 1,000 people.
No,
It's,
yeah,
it's
no, as I
amazing.
said, it was very humbling, and and I mean, it's like I said, I was speaking to the kids today. I was speaking to ninth graders. And they were actually great. I mean, I joke they were a little sleepy to begin with. I actually made them stand up and stretch, and then I do a little exercise with them where I make them draw a line, and then I draw a cartoon out of it just to show them how that works a little bit.
Oh, that's cute.
To keep them going on that. But I just remind them. I said, we're all storytellers. We just tell stories in different ways. I said one guy played football. I said, you get out there every Friday or Tuesday night or whenever it is you play, and you tell a story by how you play, and people look up to you, or they might, be happy that you won, or whatever the case is. But we all have our ability to do that. Like I said, do you still write poetry too, or you've just kind of?
I haven't been writing things that look like traditional poems in the last, couple of years. And the reason is because I kind of fell in love with the sentence. So it would seem like a pretty small distinction for most people, the difference in the poetic line that stops and then continues, and the sentence that just goes to the margin and comes back. Even though it would seem like a small difference to most people, it's been a big difference to me. Yeah. And I'm just still learning from the sentence and exploring its possibilities. So a lot of the pieces, they look like just small bits of prose, but of course, I'm still using some of the skills, metaphorical and imagistic and rhythm that I learned from poetry. And sometimes there's, even parts that could be metrically scanned. Not that I expect a reader to scan them or even to notice it.
Yeah, I would think that of all the people, there's a handful of people that I really would like to read on Twitter. And I think you would probably absolutely slay Twitter, but in a good way, not the, using Twitter to flame people every 5 minutes, but just the fact that, you could make 280 characters do things that most of us would just dream about doing. So that'd be fun. But then again, it was like a colossal waste of your time too, on the other sense too. And you don't want to fall down that rabbit hole a little bit. Now, when you went from poetry to writing the novel with Tom, that had to be like, did you get a brain freeze just, suddenly writing long, that far out into the future chapters at a time?
It definitely felt like a wildly different process in every way. Writing the novel, thinking horizontally in terms of, because this happened, this will happen, and this had happened, as opposed to thinking like vertically like a poet, was a really big change. And the other really big change was writing collaboratively. So Tommy and I wrote that novel together. And prior to that, writing had always only been me alone in a room trying to get my work done. And so to have someone else's thoughts and ideas and process mixed in was also completely different. And we had a lot of fun with it. We laughed a lot, I mean, there were some really nice parts of it. And so people always ask us if we're going to do it again. And I think it'd be fun to, but somehow I feel like that was such an unusual thing because Tommy and I are actually attracted to different kinds of material. And that was an unusual thing. This novel about the flood had, because it was a natural disaster, had like violence and filmic qualities that Tommy's kind of drawn to. But our main character was kind of a quiet woman thinking about motherhood, that stuff that I'm drawn to. And we brought them together in this weird situation. And we both weren't working on our own projects at the time. We both were looking for something new. So I almost can't imagine all those situations coming together in quite the same way that would allow us to do it again.
I just thought it's great that you were able to work together. I mean, Amy and I've been married, I guess, 28 years. So we've been married a long time. And there's just some things we love to do together, but you and Tom just honestly seem to like each other, which is kind of cool. It's like, that's kind of neat, but I mean, just the fact that you were able to do that, I just thought that was great. You have a lot of skills. You make great snickerdoodles apparently. And you also revealed you have a giant bladder. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I have to admit, I've got to, for a guy who drives a lot, I'm envious on that one. But you now have some general understanding of heating and cooling systems. By the way, did you ever get that thing without having to rip out your whole ceiling to get that thing fixed?
Well, the next time it goes, it's going to have to be ripped out. Yeah. So
okay. I'm sorry. Just burn it down. Yeah. Insurance will cover it. Not a big deal. Like I said, I'm a big fan of you and your work and the fact that you get to teach. And, when you ended up here in Mississippi, did you think you would be here for a long time? And did you think this would be a long-term? Because I thought I'd be here 2 years and I've been here 20.
Yeah.
So it's the Hotel California of states, I think.
Yeah, it was for me. I'm originally from Chicago, and Tommy, like I said, is from Alabama. We met at the University of Arkansas getting our graduate degree. And then we moved back to Illinois, where I had my first tenure track teaching job. And we had been there for 2 years. And we had a brand new baby, our firstborn. And Tommy got offered the John and Renee Grisham Writer in Residence. So we were supposed to come to the University of Mississippi just for 9 months, academic year. Tommy would have this prestigious fellowship. And I came with him. Obviously, our baby was 5 weeks old like this. When we got here, I fell in love. I fell in love with Mississippi, and I fell in love with Oxford. And I thought, I don't know why, but this feels like home. Yeah. And then at the end of the year, they needed a visiting assistant professor. I got that. And then they did a tenure track search, and I got that. And now, that was 2001. We've been here ever since. And we have, just in case you're wondering if we're planning on leaving, we have bought 5 plots next to Faulkner in the cemetery.
Have you really?
Yes, we really have.
Seriously, right there by?
Yeah, we're right down the hill. Yeah. Okay. So what Tommy, well, so we've also been married a long time. You said 28 years for y'all, it's 23 years for us. Yeah. And so, you get to the point where you kind of can predict each other's opinions on everything. There's not really so many surprises in that regard. You know where you're coming from. And one day Tommy came home and he said that he heard that Faulkner Cemetery, St. Peter Cemetery, was filling up.
Yeah. And
I didn't really like the sound of that, but I said, well, I guess it won't really affect us because we're going to be cremated. And he said, I don't want to be cremated. And I said, you don't want to be cremated? He felt very strongly about it. He wanted a grave. He wanted a gravestone. And I said, well, if you don't want to be cremated, I don't want to be cremated. I want to be with you. So that afternoon, we called the place and we purchased our second property in Oxford. We like to joke. Yeah. And for our Christmas card that year, we were walking over the cemetery and just out on the stroll with my mom. And I decided I wanted to be our Christmas card, and I wanted all of us to lay down like this on our 5 plots, all 5 of us. And my mom would refuse to take the picture. She wouldn't do it. So we don't have it. She thought that was unduly morbid. Whereas I think it's duly morbid. I mean, we're all going to die sometime, right?
Exactly. It's your forever home.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah.
On that. And 2, your students can come and have a toast to you, just like they do to Faulkner.
Yes. If I go first, Marshall, you come toast me,
Oh,
I like champagne.
Champagne? Excellent.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. Bubblies, it tickles the nose. It's a good thing. So yeah. And alcohol's a little hard to come by in Oxford, but I'll try to find some. So, but I mean, Oxford's an interesting place in the sense that, a lot of people associate it with the college and everything, but it has attracted so many creative people throughout the years. And I mean, there really is something about, Dad always told me you're the sum of your 5 closest friends. Well, if you have 5 friends that are either, National Book Award winners, or they've been a finalist for the Pulitzer, or they're, published, or, I mean, it's like, I'm walking in my neighborhood the other day and I'm like, you look familiar. And it was Charlie Mars, who's, of course, I love Charlie. His mom lives nearby where I live down here in Jackson. And I was just like, so he just started talking about why he loved living up there, just because he's of the creative community and so forth.
Mhm.
But that has to be a real plus for y'all too.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, any place with Square Books at its center is going to be giving something crazy to the community.
Yeah.
So there's all the stuff that's going on at the university, but there's all the richness of the people in town. So many people doing interesting work.
Yeah.
And it for a town of this size to have, not just writers, but like food at this level and music at this level, and visual arts, all the stuff that's going on. It's just all the things I like about being a human walking around on planet Earth are here.
Yeah, definitely. Before we go, and like I said, you've been very generous with your time today. I always love talking to you, and hope to next time I'm up that way, maybe we can go out and have dinner with you and Amy and so forth. But what advice would you give to somebody right now that has some creative pursuit? And just they're freaked out because they hear how hard it is to get into, or whatever the case like that. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I would say don't worry at all right now about how hard it is to succeed at it or how likely you are to make money at it. Like none of that is ever going to happen unless you put the time in. But the crazy thing is giving yourself permission to put the time in is a huge barrier that you have to cross, because we live in a society that isn't encouraging people necessarily to be creative. It's not encouraging us to ask questions like, did I write today? Was I creative today? Was I kind today? Was I thoughtful today? Did I think critically about the world today? Our world right now is only asking one question: confirm purchase. That's all that's being asked of us. So if we decide we're better off by being able to tap into our inner self and spend time, explicate our emotions, figure out what the big questions are that are worth asking, like who we are and what we're doing here on Earth, we're going to have to spend some time finding the thing that lets us do that. So for me, it's writing. I think there's other ways, of course. I mean, visual art, obviously for you, but also, prayer or meditation or, lots and lots and lots of things. But for me, I can get there with writing most directly. So I have to figure out how to make writing a part of every day. And so the only thing about writers is they write. Like, there's rich and poor, young and old, all races and genders, etc. Doesn't matter, but writers write. So you have to be someone who's going to give yourself that time, which means you have to carve it out from what everyone else is demanding of you. For me, that time normally comes best in the morning. It's easiest to save it for myself in the morning. But if you want to be a writer, you have to find a way to make it part of your daily schedule. So if you don't write, you kind of feel bad about yourself. You feel like you're not quite yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it is kind of silly saying you're a writer if you don't actually write.
Yeah.
I mean, I there for a while. And I think when I graduated from college, I couldn't find a job and ended up being a high school custodian or janitor for a year. Best job I ever had. I ended up meeting my wife there, and no, she was not a student at the school. I like to clear that up. But her mom worked at the school and set me up with her. So that's how that worked. I know it's a great story, but for about 6 months, I didn't draw at all. Mm-hmm. And I just realized, and then, the whole parable of the talents sermon came up when I went to my biannual visit to church. And, and I just realized I was afraid. I had felt like once again, I'd failed. There's a whole psychology to creativity that I wish somebody would write a book about someday, because, I guess War of Art, probably by Stephen Pressfield's about as good as you're going to get, but yeah, it's amazing how you play head games on that. And I didn't draw at all. And it was, I just realized I was wasting what I was decent at. And I started drawing, and, within 2 years I was syndicated nationally, cartoons wise. So just, you got to do the work.
I love that.
Yeah.
And, we have another Oxford writer who used to work as a night janitor, is Faulkner. He used to work as a night janitor and turn over the wheelbarrow in the facilities management house and write Absalom. So, just going to show that we can we can wrap our creativity into our days if we're wily about it.
That's true. Wily. I like that. I like that. Well, Beth Ann, it's a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Oh, Marshall, my pleasure. I always love talking to you.
Yeah, this is great. And like I said, in a way, like I said, the Facebook post you wrote, I felt terrible for you because I realized that, how it messed with you internally on that.
Mm-hmm.
But I was also very grateful that you had the courage to sit down and put that out there, because a lot of people don't understand, that there is that side to what we do, and especially what you do. Because I mean, gosh, 3 years of doing anything on that. But I think you helped a lot of folks, and I know you helped me.
Well, that's very sweet. Thank you so much for your time chatting today, Marshall.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for watching this episode of Mississippi Stories. Make sure to subscribe to the Mississippi Today YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified every time a new video uploads.